We face division in every part of our lives, within ourselves, within our relationships, and in our work. But it doesn't have to be that way. To live fully, we must integrate all that God has made us to be with the work He has given us to do. This is My Boulevard's Integrate podcast, helping churches, nonprofits, and everyday Christians identify the divisions holding them back and giving them tools to make lasting change.
Welcome to My Boulevard's Integrate podcast, where we talk about the 7 core components of an integrated disciple maker. I am here with my beautiful, lovely wife, Angie Lewis.
Hi.
I am also here with
beautiful, lovely brother
who's older than me and looks older than me.
Why do you?
Baraka.
This is a shame. This is a shame, ladies and gentlemen.
He does do it every time.
Every time.
It's so funny
and when you did it at church, I think
everybody thinks that.
They do.
Have you ever met someone that felt like I was the oldest?
Yes, many people. I've never. Let's not. First of all, let's not.
Everybody thinks that.
But I am kind of shocked that there are many people who think that I'm older than you, and I'm like, why do you think this?
Because I age really well.
You do. You
so do you,
well.
show. So do you.
But it's the beard thing. I need to start just dyeing I need to dye all my grays.
I don't dye anything. You can.
I mean, you got gray, so let's not make it seem like
you're about equally gray. Actually,
I am. No, that's what. But if he's equally gray, that means he may be older, and that's the reason why people think that he is older. But anyway,
the stress of life is on.
What are we talking about, older brother?
We're going to be talking about Is It Good? And Is It Good is a webinar and masterclass that I have released and will be releasing pretty soon.
Yes. By the time we release this, it will be coming out in like a week or so. So you've had a webinar, you've done different things, and it's based off of your book.
He saw that it was good.
And so talk to us about it. Tell us this kind of the premise of It Is Good.
So, the book is entitled, He Saw That It Was Good, Reimagining Your Creative Life to Repair a Broken World. And so that's really my passion, is to help people, right? Let me backpedal a little bit. I knew growing up that I was creative. Like at a young age, I knew. I was like, I'm strange. I'm just, and then, I like writing poems. I like doing weird things. And then I realized, like in high school at some point, I was like, I gotta stop writing these poems because the girls like rap. So I'm gonna transition to rap. And so eventually after that, when I became a Christian so many years later, I knew many, Byron Johnson, most of the great men and women I knew who were Christians worked in vocational Christian ministry. And at some point in my life, I was like, well, I guess I'm supposed to work in vocational ministry if you're a Christian, right? And I'm not saying that anybody told me that's what you had to do, but it just didn't make sense to try to engage the workspace, the marketplace as a Christian. And the more mature, obviously, I got, the more I read, I discovered some, people who did it and did extremely well. And so that became my passion, is how do I help encourage other people who stumbled through their vocation, their calling, their creativity in order to engage and repair a broken world. And so, and honestly, man, since my second album, Lions and Liars, because Lions and Liars in a lot of ways was this same kind of thesis. It's the lions are the people who kind of like mastered their arena for the glory of God, and the liars are the lies or the people who try to inhibit you from doing those things. And so this masterclass and that webinar were one, theological and ethical, kind of like, philosophical, theological postures towards how do we create and how do we work, but then also a kind of like some tools or resources on how to understand like what God may be calling you to do. And then the webinar, I asked my brother Sean, my friend, because I don't want to say brother because then they would actually think, so my friend Sean, to come on, and he works in the marketplace as someone who hires and consults individuals as a career coach. And so he gave real practical tips and tools like resumes, do this. During interviews, do this. Here are some skills that you need to consider, et cetera, et cetera. And so it was highly theological, but it was also very practical. And so I try to do a little bit of both.
And can they still access that? Yeah,
you can access now. The webinar as of right now depends on Sir Dahadi Baraka if it's going to be behind a paywall or not moving forward.
Yeah, yeah.
But you can access it now, yes, through
the city syllabus.
Through the city syllabus, yes.
Yeah.
So it's about an hour and a half. We spoke for about an hour and then took about 30 minutes of questions.
Oh, that's great. I think the concept, what you're talking about, is amazing because oftentimes when you think about creatives, you lean to one side or the other. You're either like super administrative and, like what Sean was describing,
right.
Like all those things come naturally or not, and creatives are usually the not side.
And I'm falling neither one.
I know. What's wrong with you?
I don't know. I'm not super creative.
You are creative, just not in an artistic way, I guess. But
you also have your own love language too. I'll never get over that.
Freedom.
It's great love language.
Just create it. You just do your own thing all the time.
Yes, marches to his own beat. But we were talking about you and your book and your webinar. But I do think it's an amazing concept and can be really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Because I even think about you are my favorite artist. Oh. Yeah. And not just because we have the same last name or whatever.
This is when we play one of my songs right here.
Yes, that would be great. Yeah. But because of your thought content, you think so deeply and then it's done with a creative bent that it's not so abstract that, I don't like museums because I'll go to art and I'm like, I don't know what that is. And people are like drooling over it. And I'm like, I'm sorry.
Most of them are faking.
I feel like I could have done that actually.
And that's the reason why I love what you said at the very beginning of kind of what this webinar is about, or it's reimagining your creative life to repair a broken world. Right. And I think that those two oftentimes don't go.
No, right.
But they don't go together. Like your creativity to repair the brokenness of the world. And so in there, that's inherent is like there, to what you're saying, Angie, is it's like, in order for that to take place, your creativity has to make sense or be delivered in a way that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think I started to take that posture once I forsook the philosophy or the maxim that people would use, like art for art's sake. For a while that sounded great. It was like, oh yeah, we just do art for art's sake. But the reality of it is nobody does anything for its own sake. Like there's some sort of message or purpose behind the thing you do.
And maybe that's not transformative.
Exactly. Yeah. And so there are a lot of people who've influenced this. I guess you can say these ideas, everybody from artists of the past to pastors and people. But the one thing that I've learned is that, and I talk about this in both the webinar and the masterclass, is that our work is a form of worship. Because when we treat it as agnostic or kind of like just simply amoral, in which sometimes work is amoral and it doesn't necessarily, but oftentimes I would argue more than not, no matter who you work for or what you do, there's some sort of purpose behind where you work. Like if you go work for a company, that company, their agenda is to make money. And the reason why they want to make money is this. And there are morals tied behind making that money. And so you need to know. And so I talk through and the reason why I say creative life and not just being creative, because I think oftentimes people will remove themselves from this equation. They'll be like, oh, well, I'm not a creative, so he's not necessarily talking about me. And my definition of work is using your creative life to solve human problems.
So in your webinar could be useful for someone who would not consider themselves an artist?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I do give practical tips to artists at some point, but I do think it's for anyone.
No, and I think that's really good. Because I think we all have a little bit of creativity, even if it's creativity in our admin and
absolutely
just the creative design. And I think that is what will be beneficial for everybody. But just speaking about like creative in the way that most people think creative is one of our favorite people, Kennedy Ryan. She writes, and I remember listening to one of her podcasts, or it was an interview, a reel or something, and she was just talking about why she writes nonfiction or fiction romance. And she talked about she writes fiction romance to be able to creatively address really hard things, right? That oftentimes would turn people off. And he said they de-escalate or disarm things so that we can have hard truths, deal with hard truths in different realities, different worlds.
That's why we love comedy.
If
somebody came up to you and said something with a straight face, you like, that's the rudest thing. I may punch you in your mouth. But if they put it in the form of a joke and they laugh and it's like, you know what? I mean, that was rude, but okay. And so, art has a way of disarming. And the other thing about art is it typically doesn't, it doesn't come, good art. Let me say good art. Good art doesn't come packaged with an overtly political agenda. You know what I mean? So that's the reason why some people could be very subversive in their art. You know what I mean? Because and I think this has been the problem with a lot of Christian art, is that it's thought solely about preaching a message without thinking, how do I creatively tell this story that other people can see themselves in it? Like, because good stories are able to say, you know what, that's me. Like, even if everything they do is, but that's me. And the reason why I wanted to just say this is something about creatively solving problems, because everybody creatively solves problems in some way. You just got to figure out how you are doing that. And I think the imagination is a way to also kind of reimagine the world, because people tell stories and you try to fight bad stories with good stories. And so how do we reimagine a world in a way that God intended it? Because the problem may be is that we take it too far. Our imaginations remove God.
So for those that are right now that are on the fence, it's like, man, okay, this I got my ear, but whether or not I'm gonna go to it, tell us why. Why would it be helpful for me to go and listen to this webinar or go and listen to this masterclass? It's going to help me do what?
First of all, you're gonna look at my face for a long period of time, and that's always been.
And you're gonna see that he's older than me. Even though I don't have any guesses.
That's it. Well, then you'll be able to see like freshness and age. You'll be like, oh, that brother's fresh. I think they're gonna be able to walk away with. I forgot the question already.
yes.
Why would someone go?
What are they going to walk away with?
Yeah, what would they walk away with?
Oh,
What's the purpose?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of things. The major thing is why we work. You know what I'm saying? What is the purpose of work? Because there have been, recently it's changed, but for the most part in the Christian space, work is always been seen as a curse. It's been creativity, and people who don't work in the church have been seen as, I like to say, JV Christians. We're not varsity. We're here to assist. Like the missionaries, or give money to the missionaries. But we've seen that creativity is, it shapes culture in a lot of ways. And so you get to recalibrate and understand a theological perspective of work and a very practical perspective of work. I think you also will get some helpful tools on how to be better at your work. I give like an assessment, if you will. Multiple times I give like, here's some tools, some takeaways, but I have this thing I call 7 Essentials of Engagement. And these are things that anybody can just use to just recalibrate their heart in God's story as they engage and they work. So yeah, I think there's understanding why we work, understanding how our work impacts other people, and understanding how you yourself can be excellent at what you do.
All right. So for the mom out there, the dad out there, the church leader out there, this is, man, I am responsible for some really creative people. And I don't consider myself to be a creative, but I'm responsible for discipling some really creative people. What would you say to the church leader, to the mom or the dad, or to the person who's kind of feeling that sense of responsibility to discipling someone that's creative? What would you how would you give them some pointers or of advice?
The first thing that came to mind is, especially if you're not a creative yourself, is don't be afraid of that interview. Like, I think the tendency is like, oh my gosh, this person, they're going to go off and they're going to be a wild, like I can't contain them.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And you may not be able to contain them.
Yeah, I get Jimi Hendrix. What is it, Jimi Hendrix?
What about him?
Feels like, he's just going to go off. I don't know. I just see Jimi Hendrix as the dude that is just like
Jimi Hendrix
super creative and
just,
but like, yeah.
But
Jimmy.
Yeah, I mean, and they do weird stuff. I remember just doing weird stuff when I was young because I felt like that was my creative expression. Like that was just something that I did. And I was like, why did I do that? And allow them to, here's what I think are two beautiful, like, you often talk about bumper rails that you use in bowling. I think if you create these bumper rails with consistently telling them, hey, as a creative, as long as you always keep God as the solution and you always make sin the problem, this is something Tim Keller communicated that I've stuck with. He says, then you have so much room to play. You know what I mean? You think about everything from VeggieTales to Lord of the Rings to Book of Eli. Like, these are stories. These are amazing pop culture stories that have been told that impact people who have no desire to know Christ. But if you engage it, you see Christ. You see the beautiful principles. Lord of the Rings has this wonderful, it starts off its story with, in the beginning, like, there was good. Well, that in itself is countercultural to what a lot of people believe, right? Yeah. That means there's something corrupted that. And so he's already telling us that, man, that there was something there was something pure and we corrupted that in his own story. And I think oftentimes we try to create a very pristine culture so our kids or the people who are around us don't become tainted. And I think we do more damage than harm because they don't get to experience the God who pierces the darkness.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. So, man, we got a couple more minutes. But
I would also say, make sure they don't become. There's this idea like artists can be lazy. Like I go against that. I will say the one thing that has helped me honestly in the last year is maximize the moment. Like maximize and Vision from Burden is creating schedule. Creating intentional schedule, because creatives oftentimes, operate as contractors, or they have their own schedule. They say, well, I'll just create. But no, you have to treat it like a vocation. Like, you know what?
So you're saying those type of maximize moment, Vision for Burden would be good for the artist.
Yes.
Or good for the person who's responsible for the artist?
It can be both, but I would say good for the artist, especially the maximize the moment. Because it helps you manage your time. It helps you to see, like, how am I taking advantage of these particular seasons that God has placed before me? Because I know for me, I want to tackle 18 things at one time.
Yeah.
And it's like, a show that's not going to happen.
Rein it in.
And so, yeah, those things. But I also think the person who's not creative can help and assist them to get on track. And I think Dhati's actually been that for me, very intentionally and unintentionally, in the sense of like, hey, man, what must you do? Asking me simple questions. Like, what are the things that you have to do now? And I'm like, I got to do 10 things. Like, no, show. what? But, and so that's kind of helped me to rein in some things. Like, oh, okay. So, yeah.
I'm his bumper.
You're my older brother. That's what older brothers do. That's what older brothers do.
What we do.
Older brothers.
Older. Yes, and I am. I'm okay. I'm okay being older. But I'm just saying, look-wise, people consider you older than me. I'm
about to get plastic surgery this week.
Thank you. But
a brother thought I was 52 the other day.
No, man.
I was running, so I don't know what kind of face I had.
Maybe it's the limp.
Yeah, I don't know. And after that, I was like, you know what? Sean. I don't know what to do about life.
It's all right. Hey, the worst.
You don't want to be 52
when
you're not 52.
I know, that's crazy.
I had one of those apps. It was a Lose It app, and on the Lose It app, no, it wasn't the Lose It.
It was a fitness app.
The fitness app. It was a fitness app. Anyway, the fitness app basically said your age.
Your body age.
Like, your body age is like 52. And I was just like, oh, that's offensive. So that was one of the most motivating things to get to my actual age in that. But we got to go.
Not your weight.
Yeah. No, not my weight. It's just like, I need to get to my age first. But before we go, so you're releasing this webinar.
Yes.
You're releasing
it's already out.
The webinar's out.
Yeah.
You're releasing the masterclass.
Yes.
But you also have some other creative things, right? You have things like Issachar, or like some of things. Talk about just what the next few months, right?
You putting the pressure on me now.
That has been confirmed. This is it. This is it.
Not the 10, not the 10, just the 2.
That we'll be doing over.
Okay.
We're looking at Show Baraka. What is coming out?
The confirmed things are, to your point, so I have the masterclass that will be released. Then monthly through Boulevard in partnership with Blueprint, we'll be doing what we're calling the Issachar lectures. And really, it's, once again, you had a desire to name a church a particular thing, which was Issachar Fellowship, and we all shut it down. We shut it down.
You let them.
I let the coup, which wisely. But the name is a beautiful name, and one of the reasons is because they're described in the Bible as people who knew the times and knew what to do. And so I think right now that is paramount for the Christian.
1 Chronicles 12:32.
We are people who need to know the times and need to know what to do with the times. But there's also the prayer of Issachar. They were blessed in the city and blessed in the field, wherever they go, right? And I want us to be that type of people. So people who understand the culture, know what to do, and wherever we go, we leave blessing, we leave shalom. And I often feel like seminary is unobtainable for some people. They just don't have the time or the income. But I also feel like podcasts are probably not enough, or just listen to YouTube. So I want to create a space where people can come together, learn, fellowship, grow, challenge one another, and be equipped to go do the work of the Lord. That's awesome. And so that's going to happen monthly. And was there something else that you were hinting at?
I mean, I know that you have your podcast, not your podcast, your YouTube or Facebook.
So I'm trying to figure out how to consolidate that to Boulevard. So we'll figure out.
Well,
but so that's Show Baraka Show on YouTube.
Look at him putting together those that maximize the moment.
There you go.
And bring it in, trying to simplify.
I got one thing before we go. I want to read a scripture, and then you can close after this. It is Ephesians 6. You actually preached on this, Ephesians 6, and I'm just going to read just 20. For this, I am an ambassador in chains. Pray that I might be bold enough to speak about it as I should. What's the Greek for should?
Honestly, don't know. But if you want to know kind of my understanding of should, go look at the should.
I just want to know what
podcast.
Okay, cool.
But the Bible just shitted on us.
It did.
So
it did.
But we are excited about like what we're bringing to you guys. So please let us know. Kind of put your comments, like, subscribe, connect, let people know about the podcast. And be ready. Come to the My Boulevard Conference, October 19th through the 21st. Download the city syllabus. Get that new Is It Good webinar.
Yep.
Like, we are excited about kind of to produce more and more resources to come alongside where you live, work, and worship.
Amen.
Love you guys. Peace.
Thank you for listening to My Boulevard's Integrate podcast. Be sure to visit us online at myboulevard.co. That's myboulevard.co. Or follow us on social media to stay updated on all things My Boulevard.